Hello everyone. This is going to be a knit along. It'll still be a tutorial, but it's going to take quite a long time because this is a very large cardigan I'm doing for a friend, and it's going to measure 56 inches. That will be the finished measurement. And as I have not knitted that size before, I have a lot of working out to do. So I'm going to just show you a little bit at a time. When I start knitting it, I'll show you each part that I actually knit. And then you'll get on with the rest of the tutorial. But just for anyone, you have to know that it will take a long time because of the size. So first off, the wool was sent to me. This is bonus double knit. It's Hayfield, and it is, I don't even know how many bowls it's going to take, but I have plenty to work with. There's 280 meters in the bowl, and it is 4mm needles. Now you really need to do a swatch, because the pattern that I am doing, this is the pattern, and it's my own stitch pattern that I do on some of my patterns. It is an open moss stitch as a knit 2 purl 2, and this pattern comes out quite wider than some other patterns, or just normal stocking stitch. So I have a tape measure here somewhere. I'll take that out of the way. So I've done a swatch. The swatch is almost 5 inches, but the bit in the middle is the actual pattern. The 4 inches, that are 20 stitches. So it's going to work out, you need about 5 stitches to the inch. Normal stocking stitch is about 5.5 stitches to the inch. So this does spread out quite a bit. And the back of this is to measure 28 inches. That's half of 56. So I've worked out that I'll need 140 stitches, but I'm going to start off with 130 for the rib, because I like the rib to be a little bit tighter than the rest of the body. But I will be adding those extra 10 stitches on at the end. So to start off with, I'll take this down a little bit so you can see a bit better what I'm actually doing. Now I like to leave a long length for sewing up, which is what I'm doing here. I'm making my slip knot, and I'm using 3.25mm needles for the rib, but I'll be using 4mm for the body. So I'm going to cast on 130 stitches. And I am using the cable cast on method, which is knitting into the back of the whole stitch. You see, I have one stitch there and one there, and I'm knitting in between those 2 stitches. So you're knitting into the back. And as you put the stitch on and you put your needle between the 2 stitches, pull that stitch tight. Like that. Yeah, as you can see, it's between the whole stitch. So I will come back when I get 130 stitches. So that is my 130 stitches, and now I'm going to knit 1 purl 1 rib, and I'm going to do it as a twisted rib. So to do twisted rib, for anyone that doesn't know, you knit into the back of every knit stitch. So there you go, into the back of the knit stitch. Let's knit 1. purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one. And that's all you do for the twisted rib. On every row you knit into the back of just the knit stitch. You do not knit into the back of the purl stitch because it's rather awkward to knit into the back of a purl stitch actually. So I'll do a few more stitches and come back later. So that is my first row, and there's just enough room on the needles without squashing it too much. But when I come to do the body part, I may possibly put it onto a circular needle because there'll be a bit more room there, but I'll see when I get that far. So anyone following this, I'm going to knit till I've done 20 rows of the rib, which my 20 rows measures about 2 inches. So anyone else following this, you can either do 20 rows the same as I'm doing, or measure your 20 rows could be different, could measure different to mine, but it should measure around about 2 inches when you're finished, and I will be back when I get that far. So I have done the 20 rows of the rib, and now I'm going to change to 4mm needles, and I'm going to do 2 rows first, 1 row knit and 1 row purl before I start the actual pattern, because the first row, the knit row, I'm going to increase the stitches. I have 130 stitches here. I was going to do 140, but I've changed that to 142 because I want the pattern is going to be knit 2, purl 2 all the way across the row on 1 row, and the second row will be a purl row all the way across. And on the next row, where we started with knit 2, purl 2, we're going to start with purl 2, knit 2. So you're going to alternate those stitches, and I want 140 stitches would have started with knit 2 and ended with purl 2. Well, I want the same thing at the start and the finish. I want knit 2 and purl 2. So I'm going to do 142 stitches, but I'm going to increase on the next row, and I'm going to increase on every 11th stitch to go from 130 to 142. So I'm going to start with knit 4, and then I'm going to increase in the next stitch, where I'm going to pick up it's like a little bar between the stitches. You can see that piece of yarn there. Just pick that up and put it onto the needle like that, and then knit into the back of it, into the back of the stitch. And then I'm going to knit 11 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we've knit 11 stitches. You're going to pick up the bar between those 2 stitches, put it on the needle, knit into the back of it, and then knit another 11 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, and then do the same again. Pick that bar up between the 2 stitches, and knit into the back of it. You can see there, knitting into the back of the stitch. And then carry on across the row, knitting 11 stitches and then picking that bar up until you come to there'll be about 5 stitches left at the end where you pick the last stitch up. And I'll meet you then. When you pick the bar up, that bar up between the stitches and put it on the other needle, make sure that the long part of the stitch is at the front and the shorter part is at the back. And then you knit into it. And now we are at the last 5 stitches, and we're going to pick up that bar between the last few stitches, knit into the back of that, and then knit the last 5 stitches. And that makes 142 stitches on that needle. And then the next row we are just purling all the way across. I'm going to change that needle. Get some wool off. And that's all it is to this row, is just purl all the way across. And just a little bit information why I like to do the rib less stitches than the rest of the body is because after it's worn a few times the ribs do tend to stretch, so I like less stitches on the rib than what I have in the body. Add this extra stitches to the body, and then for any stretching it won't be too bad. That's the way I do them. It stretches more with a sweater than it does with a cardigan, but it does stretch with a cardigan if you fasten the cardigan. If you're someone that likes to have your cardigan fastened, it will stretch the rib around your body. I found that from experience with my own sweaters and cardigans. So we're just going to purl all the way across this row, and then I'll show you how to start the pattern off. So that is the 2 rows, the knit one where you increase the stitches, and the purl row. Now I'm going to start the pattern. We're going to have knit 2, start with knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and that is all you're doing all the way across the row, is knitting 2 and purling 2. And knitting 2, purling 2. And I will be back when I get to the end of that row. Now we're at the last 4 stitches, so we're going to purl 2, and knit 2. And I always knit into the back of the knit stitch. If a row ends with knit, I knit into the back of that stitch. So that's the first row of the pattern, and the next row is just purl all the way across. So you're going to purl every stitch until you've knit the whole row, until you've purled the whole row. So that is the purl row done, and as you can see there, that's how the pattern is turning out. Now we're going to do the next row of the pattern. There's only 4 rows to this pattern. One row is doing these stitches and the other row is just purl. So we started with knit 2, so we're going to start with purl 2 this time. And then knit 2. And then purl 2. Knit 2. Purl 2. Knit 2. And repeat those stitches all the way across the row. And there you can see the next row where those 2 stitches are coming in between those 2 there. Those are the 2 purl stitches, and that's the purl stitch in between there. And the next row is just going to be a purl, and that is the 4th row of the pattern, and that is all there is to the pattern, is 2 rows with knit 2, purl 2, and 2 rows of purl. And this size is, the finished measurement is actually 56. So the cardigan itself is to fit a 54 inch, because you always have a couple of inches of ease with most sizes. Like my own, I do 40 inch for myself, but it comes out measuring 42, because you do like a little room to move. They're not skin tight. So that's all I'm going to do, is just purl across that row. So that is the pattern, how it comes out after you've knit 4 rows. And I am going to knit this until it measures about 17 inches. I am knitting this for a man, but if you're doing it for a woman, anyone knitting along with me and is doing it for a woman, you'll probably only want it to measure about 15 inches. But that is the first part of my knit along, and the next part, when I put it up, it will be the same number on my video, but I will have +1, and when I do the next part, it'll be +2 and +3, so on until I get the whole thing finished.